Fantastic. Well, it's great to see you guys. I miss British Columbia. I miss the rain. It's very hot and muggy where I am now, so say hello to the nice BC weather. And you guys can hear me okay?
Yes.
Fantastic. So Miss Graham told me that you guys were going to be reading one of my books. Which book did you guys all read?
The Night Gardener.
Did you get all the way through it, or are you just part way?
We read the whole.
You read the whole thing? Okay,
Yes.
so we don't have to worry about spoiling any surprises or anything
No.
like that. Okay, that's good. Was anyone scared by it?
Kind of.
Kind of?
At first I was.
Okay. Oh, okay. You know what's funny is I don't like scary stories, so it was very strange writing that book, because as I was writing it, I kept scaring myself, and I had to put it away, because I get frightened very easily. So it was kind of a funny thing to write that book. Now, you guys, I assume, Miss Graham, you guys have some questions, or is there anything? Tell me a little bit about how this class works. Did you guys read the book together out loud, or did you read it on your own, or how did that all work?
We started reading it together, and then they read the rest on their own.
Okay. Did you guys make Miss Graham do accents?
No. But you're good at accents.
not good enough to publicly embarrass myself here. Well, very cool. So do you guys have some, I mean, this is, Miss Graham just said, you guys were reading the book and thought you might have some questions, and I figure I've got a little bit of time. I've got a baby screaming downstairs, so I might have to run away in a few minutes, but I think we've got time to do a couple questions if you guys have them. Does anyone have one they want to ask? Yeah. Back, a space shirt.
Introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Marvin.
Louder.
It's nice to meet you.
And then, in other thought, you wrote that you spent 9 years writing this book. Why did it take that long?
Well, that's a very good question. Part of the reason the book took so long is because I am slow. You will notice that I'm a very fast talker. I've always been able to speak very quickly, but as fast as my mouth goes, my mind is extremely slow. And it takes me a long time to come up with ideas, and come up with ideas that I like. The other reason it took me so long is frankly because for me, when I write, I don't know about you guys, do any of you guys ever write stories or anything like that? Not really? Do you ever have to write like essays or do any writing?
Yes.
So for me, when I sit down to write something like an essay, I think it's gonna be brilliant. In my head, it's super smart and cool and interesting, and then I start to write it down, and when I look at what I've written down, it's sometimes, in fact, almost always, it's kind of terrible, and it's not nearly as good as what was in my head. And so for me, when I write a book, writing it is just the first step, because when I write a book, I actually have to go back, I realize it's not quite what I wanted, and I have to rewrite it again and again and again. And so I probably wrote The Night Gardener somewhere between, 12 or 15 times. I rewrote the book, and I changed the story each time, and I changed the characters, and I brought in new characters, and I got rid of others, because it took me doing it over and over again over the course of 9 years to figure out exactly what I wanted to do with the story, to make it match what was in my head. That's a great question, Marlon.
Thank you.
Any other question?
Can I ask you a question?
Introduce yourself.
My name is Katie Kim.
Hello, how are you?
And do you have any role model? If so, who is it?
Can you repeat that question? Sorry?
Do you have any role model? If so, who is it?
Well, that's a very good question. I have lots of role models. Some of my big role models, Miss Graham was a role model for me when I was growing up, and she was a fantastic inspiration for me and helped me sort of learn to articulate all the thoughts swirling around in my head. And I sincerely, and I think I've said this before, but I say it often that I was on a debate team that Miss Graham was the coach of, and she taught all of us how to do public speaking. And I sincerely believe that I learned more in that debate team than I did in any class I took all through school. Probably the biggest role models in my life are my parents. My mother is a painter, so from her I sort of get that desire to be a creative artist. And my father is, he's a professor, he's a public speaker, he's a pastor, and so he's very good at telling stories. And sort of when I mix those two, I kind of meet right in the middle between my two parents. But my other role models are frankly other writers. I'm a big reader. I read all the time, and every single book I write is connected to other books that I've read. And so to me, my biggest inspirations will always be the stories that I've read, and those sort of kind of shape who I am. That's a great question, Kate.
Thank you.
My name is Ella.
It's nice to meet you. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes. Okay. How did you get the idea of the giant creepy tree?
Well, that's a great question. You know, part of the way I got the idea is, so you guys are living in British Columbia, and I find British Columbia, it's very beautiful, but I feel like the trees there are all like, there's a lot of pine trees and things like that, but there's not really old creepy trees. And a while after I left British Columbia, I moved to Pennsylvania in the Appalachian Mountains, which are very old mountains. And the trees there are really, really old and tangled and ugly. And every time I would see them at night, they would kind of creep me out. Have you guys ever seen a tree that looks kind of creepy?
Yes.
Yes.
The branches kind of look like arms and things like that. And it's, you know, when those shadows start getting a little bit long in the evening, it's just a very creepy thing to look at. And I was so taken by those trees, and I just thought they were so creepy looking that I felt like, well, so you should be able to make a scary story about a tree. But that was very hard to do because trees don't move, so they don't make for very good villains. And so I had to come up with a way that the tree could be dangerous, even though it wasn't moving. And so that's where sort of the idea of the way this tree could kind of bring people in and lure them in with these gifts that it's giving. That's sort of where that came from. That's a really good question, Anna. Thank you.
Jack?
My name is Jack. What's the progress of writing a book?
Princess?
I had trouble hearing that. It's you're speaking loudly enough, but the microphone is cutting out. Can you repeat your question one more time, Jack?
What is the process of writing a book?
So the process, that's a great question. For me, the process is slow, as I said. It took 9 years for this one. Usually what I do is I spend a lot of time drawing. Every single day I sit down, I have journals that look like, this is a blank one, but I carry journals like this everywhere I go. And I've been filling these out for about, I guess, goodness, like 15 years now. You can actually see, I just moved up my office, but you can see there's a whole road. You see all those notebooks there?
Oh, wow. Yes.
Yeah, so those are all my journals, and every single one of them is filled with like little drawings and pictures and things like that. And so sometimes when I'm drawing, I just like to let my imagination wander. I don't have a mission. I just draw whatever pops into my head. And every once in a while, I draw a picture that sort of makes me interested and want to know more. And so in the case, 9 years ago, I was doodling a picture, and I drew a picture of a girl who was waking up in bed. And she had all these dry leaves tangled in her hair. And there was something really creepy about that, sense of like if you put your hand through your hair and all of a sudden you hear this crinkling sound and you pull out these leaves and you can't figure out what happened to you, what's going on while you were sleeping. And so the whole book came from that little image or idea. And for me, the process of writing books always starts with little drawings. Every book I've ever written has started with a little doodle or a sketch in one of my notebooks. And I'm not a very good artist, but I still find that drawing is a way to sort of spark my imagination and help me come up with new ideas, even if the pictures aren't that pretty. That's a great question, Jack.
Thank you.
Marvin had a question about your drawings. Marvin?
From your website, I can see you're good at drawing. Why did you not write? Why did you not draw the pictures for your books?
Well, so I have 3 books out, and my first book and my third book, both I drew pictures in. But for this one that I was writing, there were 2 reasons I didn't do the drawings. The first one was because, frankly, we had to write it very quickly, and it was taking me a long time to finish the book. And so I didn't have a lot of time to do drawings for it. And the other reason is because my publisher mentioned another artist named Patrick Arrowsmith, who I'm a huge fan of, and he's the one who did those 3 drawings inside the book, and he did the cover. And he was like, oh, well, Patrick would be willing to do a couple pictures. And Patrick is a brilliant artist. And so the second they said they would let him draw pictures, I was like, I don't want to do it because he's so much better than me. So those are sort of the reasons I didn't do the drawings in those books. But I do some drawings for some of my other books. So my newest book, which is called Sophie Quire, it's about a girl who repairs old and damaged books, and she finds a magical book one day. And I did about 45 drawings inside that book. And so I like to draw a lot, but it's not my main job or anything. It's a great question, Marvin. Thank you.
Okay, Angela?
My name is Angela.
Nice.
When did you first realize that you wanted to be an author? And why did you want to be an author?
What was the second part of that question?
And why did you want to be an author?
Okay, so the first answer is it took me a long time to learn that I wanted to be an author. I was not a very good student growing up. I didn't get good grades, and I was not particularly good. I was good at talking, but I wasn't good at writing. My grammar was poor. My spelling was terrible, and I was a little bit lazy. And so growing up, I didn't want to write, I wanted to draw. I thought I was going to draw comic books or draw picture books or things like that. I liked the idea of drawing and telling stories for kids through drawing. And I basically learned at some point that the ideas I had were more complicated than my ability to draw them. I kept on wanting to draw things that I literally just didn't have the skill for. I had all these cool ideas and I wasn't able to draw them. And so I had to take a step back and kind of start from scratch. And I used to, in school, I was someone who, even when we had books to read in class, I wouldn't always read the book. I was pretty good at faking my way through that. And so when I got to university after my first year, I spent a whole summer just reading all the books that I had skipped in high school to catch up to people. Because I had a lot of catching up to do. And I'm a pretty serious reader now, but it took me a long time to kind of teach myself how to be a serious reader, and also how to write. I had to work very hard at it, but I also knew that it was worth it because I had all these ideas and stories in my head, and I knew that writing was the only way I was going to get to do them. As for the question of why I want to tell stories, I can't say for sure. Some people like certain things. I've always loved stories of all different kind, and so I always liked being very creative growing up. That was something that really made me happy, and so I kind of always knew I wanted to do something creative, but it took a long time to figure out that writing was the best fit for me. It's a great question. Thanks, Andrew.
Amy?
Hello.
Hello, my name is Amy. So
Hi.
do you read stories to your little daughter?
Yes, I do read stories to my little daughter.
Do you read scary stories to your little daughter?
No. My daughter, I actually have 3 daughters now. We just had a new baby last month, and so we've got a very full house all of a sudden, which is why I'm no longer in the main office. My new office is in the attic because babies keep taking all of the rooms.
You have 3 daughters?
What?
You have 3 daughters?
3 little girls, yeah. So we have a 4-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a newborn. So it's a very full house. So I read a lot to my older 2 kids, and we don't read many scary stories, except there's one really gruesome book of poetry that my oldest daughter found that she is just obsessed with. So we read that one book, and it's all a bunch of scary poems, and it's called Nightmares. It's by a poet named Jack Berlutsky, and she really likes that. But generally speaking, we mainly read, I don't know if you guys ever read books like Frog and Toad, and things like that. We're reading a lot of those sorts of books and just a lot of silly picture books and things like that. So that's a great question. Thanks, Amy.
Who wants
Does
to
anyone
ask
else have
a question?
any?
Yes.
Yeah.
Ella, go ahead.
I heard that your book is going to be the Disney movie. Are you excited about it?
I am excited. I'm not sure it will happen. Sometimes what happens is a company like Disney will buy the rights to a book, but then they have to decide if they want to make it or not. And so I'm not holding my breath, but I do have my fingers crossed because I would be very excited if it turned into a movie. I think it would be a lot of fun. One of the things that a lot of people ask me, and we've tried to figure out, if we were to do a movie, there's always the question of whether it should be animated, like a cartoon, or whether it should be with real actors. What do you guys think? If there were a
Real
Real
actors.
actors, okay. Who do you guys, someone else asked me this and I didn't have an answer. Who do you think should play the Night Gardener?
like an old man.
What?
An old man, you said?
Who's tall? Who's tall and
A
skinny?
tall old man. We'll see what we can do.
And skinny.
We'll see if we can figure. Yeah, again, I don't know if that's going to happen or not, but that would be very exciting if it did. It would be pretty cool. And last year I went out to the Disney movie studio lots and got to spend time. And we've written the screenplay, and so we're just kind of waiting to see if everything could proceed with that. But it would be very cool if it happened.
Ask about the ending.
Oh, and also, I saw it in the internet that they want to change the ending of the story. Are you going to change it?
Where did you see that on the internet?
There was one website, right?
I mean website.
on my website or somewhere else?
No,
Well,
somewhere else.
Okay, not to my knowledge, and I think I would know because they hired me to write the script. I feel like I would know. We changed the beginning a little bit because we had to kind of make some trims, and you got to kind of adjust the shape of it a little bit. But to my knowledge, they're not changing the ending, unless you know something that I don't. In which case, I'm in for a big surprise. So
Tell me you like the ending.
that's very funny.
Do you like the ending,
Yes.
Michaela? Say,
And I like the ending of it.
Good. We'll try to keep it just like that. Any other questions? Yeah.
Do you have any plans to make the Night Gardeners a series?
That's a good question. So I'll ask you guys. How many of you guys think I'm planning to write a sequel to Night Gardener? Everyone but Jack? Is that what I'm saying?
No, all of us.
Jack?
No, all of us said yes.
You know what? I have no intention or desire to write a sequel. A lot of people wonder, and in fact, some readers have come to me and they've written extra chapters of the book because they want to find out what happens to Molly and Kip when they follow that map. And that's very cool to read, and I love seeing people's ideas. But my favorite thing when I read a book is when the book doesn't tell me all of the answers to every question. And so I love the idea that kind of in each reader's mind, in their imagination, they're coming up with answers about what would happen next to Molly and Kip. But I don't have a strong desire to write the next story. I feel like, I think I like writing new stories every time. Now that might change someday. I might, remember those characters and want to come back to them. But to me right now, I feel like I just kind of like the book where it is now. That's a great question. Yeah. Amy.
What's your favorite book you wrote?
out of those
So I've written 3 books so far, and of the 3, I like them each for different reasons. Frankly, probably the book that I'm kind of proudest of is the one that just came out. That book I mentioned to you, Sophie Quire. It was a very, very difficult book to write. It's a big, sprawling, kind of sweeping adventure story. And it's kind of, I was basically trying to write the book I wished someone had given me when I was 12 years old. And it was I'm really excited about that book and excited that it's finding readers right now. So right now, that's the one I'm most excited about. But I'm also about to start a brand new book, so that'll be my new favorite. It always changes. Marin, yeah.
Oh, she can go first.
wait, Amy?
What difficulties did you encounter during the course of writing Night Gardener?
For the Night Gardener, what difficulties did I encounter? Well, I mean, it's a hard job. Writing is always hard, so there's the standard difficulty of just having to do it over and over again. Probably one of the unique difficulties with that book had to do with the fact that I had trouble figuring out how scary the book should be. When I started writing it, it was not scary enough at all. And people would read it and they're like, this is not scary at all, this is really weak. And so I rolled up my sleeves and I sat down and made it scary, and then they read it and they said, this is terrifying, you can't publish this. And so then I had to find something right in the middle, because it's kind of hard to write a scary story that's something that younger readers can still read. And so that was hard to figure out the right line, because it was either too childish and tame, or it was actually terrifying. And I wanted to kind of find a space in the middle that wasn't so extreme. And that was one of the unique challenges with that book. It took me a long time to do that. It's a great question. Yeah.
In the book, both Molly and Kip have grammar mistakes. Did you do that on purpose?
Yes, I did. That's a really astute observation. So they make grammatical errors in the way they speak. What I was trying to do when you're talking about writing or acting, what we refer to that as dialect writing, which is when characters are speaking, they use a grammar that's not quite correct. And I wasn't trying to perfectly replicate, the Irish dialect because it would have been really hard to read. But I was trying to have a few syntactical patterns and quirks that would sort of indicate where they were from and how they talk. That's a really great question. That was something I worked very hard on to try to make that language accurate without it getting too difficult to read for a contemporary reader. That's a great question. Okay, so we have time for maybe one more question. Anything else pop in our minds? Got anything yet?
Who or what inspired you to become a writer?
Well, probably the thing that inspired me to be a writer was honestly just my love of other books. So you guys, I don't know if you read the author's note in the back of Night Gardener, but there were books that inspired me to write Night Gardener. So there was that book, Something Wicked This Way Comes, which was a huge inspiration. There's books like The Secret Garden, things like that. There's the Washington Irving stories. My biggest inspiration is always, I don't know if you guys have ever seen like a magician or something, but when they do a cool magic trick, my first desire is like, oh, I want to learn how to do that. And every time I read a great story, that's the exact feeling I have. I want to figure out how to do a story like that. And so for me, my biggest inspiration has always been the stories that I've read. And that's why I'm a firm believer of the fact that you can't actually be a writer unless you were first a reader. Because you kind of have to feed your imagination and sort of stoke that in your own mind before you can start producing new ideas. That's a great question. Thank you. Ms. Graham, did you have any questions?
When are you going to come back to Canada?
Well, we keep having these dang babies, which makes it very hard for us to leave home. We were actually planning to come back this summer, right about now, but we had another baby. So we're probably gonna hold off for another year or so, but we'll probably be back for the Christmas holiday within the next year or two. And so when I'm in town, I'd love to catch up with you and
That'd be
grab a bite to
wonderful.
eat. That'd be really nice. So, all right, guys, thank you.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Have a-
He just turned off.
Oh, my. He looks different, but it's